Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast, the podcast dedicated to simplifying the commercial real estate industry for the masses. Each week, we sit down with industry experts to dissect the many facets of commercial real estate and extract valuable lessons you can apply to your business. Whether you're a new or seasoned business owner or investor, the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast will be your go-to resource for all your commercial real estate needs. Now, here are your hosts, Raphael Collazo and Jeff Walston.
Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast. I'm your host, Raphael Collazo, here with my co-host, Jeff Walston. How's it going, my friend?
It is going great. I think it's Thursday. It's St. Patty's Day, start of March Madness. There's a lot going on today. And I'm getting, I would say, fruit from the seeds that I planted early winter and this late winter. It's finally coming to fruition. And so, I mean, we're doing great on the business side. So how's it going over there, my friend?
Yeah, no, similar to you. I mean, first off, it's beautiful outside. So I'm trying to go outside and kind of stroll around a bit and kind of take in the nice weather. But as far as the business side is concerned, I mean, it's definitely been picking up pretty good and things are starting to turn around as far as deals are concerned. I mean, November, December were a little slow, but similar to a lot of people is probably just how it is in the industry. And so, things have been picking up pretty good. So I feel great. And again, we always keep saying this, but 2022 definitely does have the makings of a phenomenal year. And we're really excited and blessed to be in the position that we're in. But speaking of just a blessing, I think we had a phenomenal conversation with Blake Templeton, who's the CEO of Boron Capital. They do a variety of different things, and we really dove into a variety of different topics that I think you guys will gain a lot of value from. And some obviously were commercial real estate focused, but then we also dove into the cryptocurrency space. So you guys will learn a little bit more about what cryptocurrency is and the crypto funds that they run in order to amplify the returns for their investors. And so one of the things we touched on to start off with was what got him interested in the real estate space to begin with. I think he got into the real estate space roughly in the 2006 timeframe. And then ever since then, he's been operating within the mobile home parks, the self-storage facilities, the hotels, corporate housing, et cetera. So he has a very diverse background when it comes to commercial real estate. And then also we talked a little bit about what that leap of faith moment was for him and how he took the leap and eventually made it into a very successful career. And he just is on a stratospheric trajectory, which I think you guys will be excited to kind of follow along with what he's doing. And then, like I said earlier, we did talk about the cryptocurrency space. He kind of explained what cryptocurrency is, and he utilized some cool analogies to kind of help illustrate what it is, because sometimes, it's a buzzword that everyone talks about, but sometimes it's kind of hard to really put your head around what exactly that looks like. And so he provided a cool little analogy to explain what that exactly is. And then we touched on the implications of blockchain going forward for the commercial real estate industry. And at the end, we rounded it out with some topics pertaining to personal development. He takes his personal development extremely seriously. He was telling us at the beginning of the podcast that he invested almost $1 million in coaching and, education towards really amplifying his results in life. And so that showcased during the podcast interview, and I think you guys will gain a lot of value from it. So Jeff, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I wanted to elaborate on is that I got from Blake is one important thing for him in personal development and in business is his mindset. And I think that was important. I think he definitely elaborated on that. And I think you guys are going to gain value of this episode. So can't wait for you to hear it.
Definitely, man. I couldn't agree more. And, again, first off, we just greatly want to appreciate you guys because you guys are awesome and really have been engaging with the podcast, and it's shown in our downloads and our engagement. So continue to do that. If you guys get a chance, I would greatly appreciate it if you could go to the Apple Podcast and leave us a 5-star review, because it really does make a difference and it really impacts the podcast and make sure that we reach a very, very broad audience. So again, thank you all so much. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the episode. Well, hey, Blake, great to see you this fine afternoon.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Got some exciting things to share.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's in Texas Tech territory. So for those of you guys who are listening to this, we're actually recording this right as the NCAA tournament starting. So, college basketball fever's at its all-time high. And we're here in Louisville, Kentucky. And, we've been struggling for the last couple of years, even though historically we're a pretty strong school. So, hopefully we going forward, we have better luck in basketball. So But welcome, man. Oh, we really are honored to have you. You know, I dove in, like we said offline. We're on. I dove in your background a little bit through your LinkedIn and just doing a little bit of research about you. So we're really excited to kind of dive into your backstory and get a feel for who you are, what you do, and how you've been able to serve your clients over the last 15 to 20 years. So usually what we like to do is we like to learn a little bit more about the person that's across the table from us. So if you don't mind kind of sharing your story, I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started back in 06 without a penny to my name. Didn't know you couldn't defer student loans anymore. So I had to humbly move back in with mommy and daddy. And my parents ended up getting a letter in the mail, and it was to go to a real estate conference. And so I went, and man, I was hooked. I didn't know anything about construction, didn't know anything about renovations, remodel, but I realized that I was wired for the numbers. Like the numbers were so appealing to me. I could keep the formulas. I could see what had to happen to actually, make a deal work, whether it was a wholesale or a full renovation or construction ground up. Like I got the big picture. So, burned the bridge behind me, and we went hardcore into single family homes into pre-foreclosure back in 06 through 2012. So we did 300 plus transactions in that time period, essentially stopping the foreclosure, doing a short sell, either wholesaling that deal or doing a full renovation. And obviously, you take the knowledge that you have at the time and you apply it to the best of your abilities, and you take a new little piece or nuance, or you see what someone else did, or I've spent over $1 million in mentors and coaches paying for speed, and then you just keep trying to see how you could do the same type deal with making more money. And in 2012, we came to this epiphany that, we know all the things, so let's just do bigger deals. Yes, sometimes there's nuances of different types of risk, but the rewards, can be asymmetric, where the rewards are just so far outweigh. And so we went into corporate housing in the oil industry in 2012. So we had the rise of oil, and we were peaking at the hundreds in mid 14, mid 15, which is now back ironically where we're at now. And so in corporate housing, we built development with all bills paid, fully furnished, like a hotel, but more private. And then we still have all that, no longer in single family. Then we moved into realizing, we want to scale, and we don't really want to do any more corporate housing because it's something that's not as sustainable as far as the price. We've always been almost 100% occupied, but the price has fluctuated. And so we want to get into something that we have that we can scale massively in. So we essentially threw every single thing against the wall, from looking from the stock market to gold to residential to commercial in different sectors, from multifamily to industrial to hotels, literally everything. And we looked from 1993 to 2020 and just processing. And there's this map, and essentially it shows that the appreciation of the assets, and literally self-storage just dwarfed everything else, and manufactured home complexes in a close second. And then, literally everything else is, not even in a close third at all. And so it created this picture for us to actually focus on. So this is back in, once we were transitioning years ago, we started realizing to scale, we need to build hedge funds, where we could actually partner with massive, Titan operators. And then we could literally have, not have to do everything in-house. Because obviously, if you do everything in-house, you've got to have the full team when you lose economy of scale. So that's what we do, is we run self-storage and mobile home, manufactured home community hedge funds. And then obviously we'll get into it later, but we're in cryptocurrency and have a cryptocurrency hedge fund with a very proprietary portfolio strategy that produces 3-digit returns. So pretty exciting.
That's amazing, man. And it's great that you did the analysis on the front end to get an understanding of where you wanted to dictate your business. Cause
Sure.
a lot of people don't do that. They just hear what's hot in the market right now. And it's like, oh, we'll follow that trend. And, it's kind of where the money leads to, but sometimes sitting down and really looking at the numbers, that may not immediately come without doing that type of analysis. Sometimes you may miss an opportunity that's right in front of you, because self-storage wasn't always a given. Back in the 80s and 90s, it was just like, the idea of having a facility that was a warehouse now be converted into some sort of, self-storage use was just unheard of. Like, it wasn't really a thought process that a lot of people had. And now it's, one of the hottest property types that people invest in across the nation. So, again,
it's a really valid point. It's a really valid point. And I think one thing that is a nuance that I would really challenge and encourage everyone to process is what we've done in our hedge fund is that we used to on syndications. So, we would do a one-off property, a value add syndication. You find the gold, you're persuaded that it's gold. So you got to shine it to turn it into gold. And then unfortunately you're selling the gold so that you can actually go make the profit on the gold. Now you got to go do the thing again, got to go find another, diamond in the rough. And so what we do in the hedge fund with these self-storage and manufactured home communities is we flip the whole model. And so there's a 8% pref. But after, between 5 to 7 years, we end up refinancing. And then when we refinance the investors out, pay all their principal back. And then the investors stay in the deal in proportion to their interest in the deal. And then we never sell. So before we were having to sell just to give them their money back and pay them the strong return. Now we never sell. And then we refinance every 3 to 5 years. So it's like we're selling the same properties every 3 to 5 years, and it's all tax-free because it's obviously a loan. And the self-storage and manufactured home communities, that they appreciate so fast. So we're able to stay at a low LTV at all times. And so it is a powerhouse deal because you don't have to go find the deals over and over and over again. Yet you're practically in terms of income selling them that many times over and over and over again.
100%. And those opportunities that you've identified now, you identified them for the long haul. Because a lot of people, like you said, in the syndication model, what they'll do is look at these opportunities and be like, can I sell it in 3 to 5 years? They're not they're not like thinking about what happens in, if it's year 3 or year 4 or whatever, something happens that can't make me achieve that return. And therefore you're selling at a loss or whatever else. Right. So, and I could see the value there for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely going with the model that you were saying. The old saying is like, when you make money, actually when you buy. But the model that you're running right now, it's obviously like what you said, you're getting that money as you keep selling over and over again. So that's great. That's actually amazing. Earlier you were talking that you're running the numbers about like real estate. Was there a certain like point or another key element other than the numbers that actually just made you want to go with commercial real estate, or was it just particularly the numbers?
Yeah. Excuse me. It's a great question. There's so many different things. And I think, commercial real estate, there's obviously a myriad of different niches. And so specifically for us, manufactured home communities and self-storage, I'll kind of give a couple nuggets on why each of those that might kind of help paint the picture. But they're the two strongest in the actual returns. So with manufactured home communities, we own the actual lots, not the homes, which is a whole paradigm shift because now they actually keep up the home because it's physically their home. So they have pride of ownership. So they're good to the home because it's their home. But then our maintenance costs are drastically reduced because we're managing the roads, the security, the fence, and then the office. So expenses are way down. And then the length of the actual leases of the lots are way longer. So a typical time period is somewhere in the ballpark of 5 years, because it costs them too much money to actually move, because they got to move their home out of the park. So low turnover. And then again, I talked about a CapEx and maintenance costs are really low. So you have this, and then you've got a constraint on supply. So constraint on supply on the manufactured home communities, there's typically 150 manufactured home communities being torn down every single year in the US. And the numbers show there's only 10 being built a year. And the reason, the question is like, why? And the reason is because each city is pushing them to the outskirts of town. And then the zoning is hard to get. So you don't have very many being built. Supply and demand, you get a constraint on supply. And then it's obviously the lower end on the housing spectrum. And there's always people at the bottom that actually need quality housing and a quality community. So we build communities. This is not like trailer trash. This is like actual communities where people have pride of ownership. So so when we look at like our investments and we look at, self-storage or manufactured home communities, it's like to go into like running a business, a storefront business, of almost any kind in today's market. Like there's no comparison, because the real estate, everyone has to have a roof over their head. Mm-hmm. However, the majority of things that someone's buying, they don't have to buy from you, and they don't have to actually have that thing. And we've, I'm not sure if you guys have really looked at the Fed and what all the money they're printing and the M1 money supply. But with the M1 money supply, I mean, if you look at there's a chart that's discontinued on the Fed's site. It's called the M1 money supply. So I encourage you guys to go take a look at it. But literally, it shows like 2008 was a blip on the radar. It's literally catabolic. It's like a jet going straight up, in 2020. Now they've printed over 10 trillion. We've printed so much money in the last 24 months that almost 40% of all the money that we have in circulation has been printed in the last 24 months. And then all of history, the last 24 months, 40% has been printed. So that means the inflation rate is almost 15%, somewhere in that ballpark. So like economists talk about CPI, like 2.7% or whatever. It's a very manipulated number, because you're not looking at what people are really buying and having to actually spend every day. So if we understand 15%, to answer your question again on like why real estate and why commercial estate and why specifically self-storage and manufactured home communities, because I've got to say, like, can I beat inflation? Like we have to beat inflation. We have to beat 15%, or you're actually losing money on your money, even though you have the asset. So yeah, most definitely anything outside of that, is much more speculative. And that's why we choose those two asset classes.
That's awesome, man. And again, I think that the logic there for the manufacturing home community, I think is brilliant. I mean, the fact that you don't actually own the homes themselves limits your maintenance significantly. And that's one of the reasons, when I talk to investors and, I deal in the commercial space on the retail, industrial, and, I've done some office stuff as well. But one of the main concerns from a lot of investors that are kind of, instead of being in multifamily, they want to go into some of these other property types like an industrial or retail, is the less management than intensive than some of these other property types. And the idea of you just owning the lot, right, is amazing, because now, like, what do you have to maintain? Like you said, the road, the fence, I don't know how that works from like the sewers and everything, the perspective on that front, but it's so much more limited than, some of these other property types. So that's awesome, man. One thing I was curious about, and so there's, just to give you some context of the people who are listening to this podcast, I mean, we have people from all over the commercial real estate landscape on the brokerage end, investors, lenders, et cetera. And so a lot of people are curious about taking that leap of faith and getting into, your investment sphere. So how exactly did you come to that conclusion? I know you went to the conference and everything, but what was that thought process like for you to make the shift from I'm doing what I'm doing right now, and to now going full force. Maybe around that 2012 timeframe when you could kind of tell us how you transitioned from those foreclosures down into, full force into, scaling your operations.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to answer a couple of different ways because I think it's different for each person. But I think the number one thing is you've got to create a pain point behind you, whether it's real or fiction. You've got to create one, and then you've got to create a pleasure point out front of you. And the pain point has to be stronger than the pain point of fear of failure, or, like not knowing what it's going to do and how getting stuck in your head. Because when we're stuck in our head, we're dead. So I built a pain point back here where I burned the bridge, where it's this like force where I had to do it, and just put myself in a leveraged position where like, if I don't do it now, then these are the pains. So the pains could be silly things that aren't even real. Like that, if I don't do it now, that means this about how I believe about my family or my lineage or my parents, or, whatever that hot button for you is. When you create that leverage of, if I don't do that, then this is what that means. That's what really helps me just break that barrier. And I just burned the bridge. I'm like, well, I'm this kind of person. So moving forward, taking the pleasure action, trailblazing my own direction, means this about me. And so creating the identity of what the decisions mean versus feeling the fear of failure of actually doing it. That was the biggest thing for me. And then obviously, action produces momentum, and momentum produces action, and then emotional fulfillment is gained from action and momentum. So like anything that's considered an action, whether it's a phone call, whether it's putting money down on something, whether it's learning, so just the action creates the momentum, and the momentum creates the action that creates the emotional fulfillment. So for me, that was the biggest thing, is like just having liquid ferocity about my why, and then realizing that that's doing this action will fulfill the direction for my future.
That's amazing. No, and like you said, it's in the mind a lot of times. And I feel like you made that huge jump from what you were doing before into something that was completely unknown territory for you. And, I feel like everyone has that moment in their life where they come to a crossroads and they're like, okay, well, whether I take this leap or not, it's based on what the fire or, the pain point is inside of you. So I think that was great insight that you shared there. Definitely.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
I completely agree. So I know you said earlier cryptocurrency. So I kind of want to dive into that. So what is cryptocurrency fund? Can you elaborate on that and give us some details?
Yeah. And prior to that, I'll just share our conviction. So we did the same thing. We realized over the last 4 years, every single year as we're growing our assets, man, how might we collapse time and grow faster? How might we gain more value, more AUM, more assets under management? How do we gain more? How do we have more sustainability in hard times? How do we exponentially grow asymmetrical, where the risk is so low and the reward is so high, it's incomparable to anything else. So asking these quality questions created quality answers. And we went a massive deep dive into cryptocurrency, and the historical picture. Obviously, Bitcoin's been around for over a decade now, but nothing in cryptocurrency actually had legs. Nothing was really formatively going to be something that could change the world until 2019. So before that, you really couldn't do anything with it. You couldn't substantiate it being an investment that would do something. There wasn't enough bandwidth of historical picture to see action, because the blockchain wasn't actually utilized. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But basically what happened is it came alive when you had, for instance, all your major credit card companies created custom credit cards where you could store your Bitcoin on it. And then on the blockchain, there's a thing called the high rail system. Don't have to understand what it means, but essentially you can take that card, that debit card of Bitcoin, and you can go to a restaurant or Disney World or pay for a flight and swipe that card. And the high rail system, transitions the Bitcoin into US dollar and you pay in US dollar, and you're literally able to make transactions. So it actually became a fundamental property that could become that was a currency. So then it became alive. The blockchain, a good way to describe the blockchain is like on my iPhone. This is a software. iPhone's a software. So Bitcoin is a software. On my iPhone, there's a thing we'd call the App Store, and it's a platform. And Bitcoin in that software has a platform called the blockchain. And in my iPhone, in this App Store, there's apps, and these applications are like businesses. And in Bitcoin, that's a software that has a blockchain platform. There's little apps, there's businesses. And in the iPhone, those businesses could be things that make my life more convenient, right? It could be simple things like a filter for a photo that makes me look warm and cuddly and sexy, or it could be, a Google Calendar, or it could be a, productivity app, a fitness app. And then I'm paying money for those apps. So those apps are actually businesses. And each of these apps have become, and on an iPhone and the App Store, have become more defined and more elaborate. And I mean, I pay $60, for one of my apps, so it's like a functioning business. And Apple makes money, makes 30% of that. Okay. So on the blockchain, Bitcoin, the blockchain is these businesses, and these businesses have people like you and me absorbing the service, or, doing business with the opportunity, and that creates monies. And there's monies that are moving on the blockchain. So Apple, the company, the stock is really irrelevant. Like if it goes up or down, it doesn't really mean anything. What's the value of Apple? How much money is on their quote unquote blockchain? How much money is in their app store? How many users are in, how much adoptability, how many people want the thing? So Bitcoin has that app store, that blockchain, and there's how much adoptability, how many people are using it, how much money's flowing on it. That's what creates the legs. That's what makes it come alive. And so when that really happened in 2019, Bitcoin became a living organism that ran itself as a software. So we would call Bitcoin specifically, because it's the predominant cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is the digital gold. It's the bank in cyberspace. It's the way for you to actually have money that's not being deflated at 15% like the US dollar. It's a way that you can actually create a future that actually is a storehold of wealth, where, right now, my money in my bank in the US, I'm paying fees to keep my money in the bank that's deflating at 15% a year. Like it is a ridiculous phenomenon. So what we do, so that's the big picture of crypto. Like, oh my gosh, it's a digital future. So when we looked at it as a hedge fund, we're like, man, well, it's not really as prudent to just go find a cryptocurrency. There's 16,000 of them, and 99% of them won't grow legs. And so what we did is we built a hedge fund, a portfolio strategy where we only hold 5 or 6 of the best. And then we hold Bitcoin, and then we do between these 5 or 6, we swing trade, and certain of them have a narrative that'll last longer. It can actually be a massive value. It's undervalued at the moment. And then we would actually say, oh, something's changed. They've changed their system, so it's no longer going to be, but this one is. And so volatility is actually good when you actually are behind the strategy that helps you make money on volatility. And that's what we do. And that's where three-digit returns after net of our fees, is what the history has been. And it's, beyond just the massive exponential growth, when someone can turn 100,000 into 300,000, beyond just a massive growth, it's where everyone as a real estate investor needs to be. Like, if I could put it in the real estate investor's head, it's like going to a digital real estate in the mindset that you can actually own value that no one can actually take away from you. Whereas on our physical real estate, unfortunately, we're being taxed property taxes, whether it's rented or not rented. You got a roof that's decaying, whether it's rented or not rented. You have someone can break in and steal something that's potentially not insured. But in cryptocurrency, when we actually are running it as a strategy, as a portfolio strategy, we can build wealth in this protected bubble that is a storehold of wealth. It's holding the value, not losing value. Then it's gaining massive value. It's actually growing. And it is absolutely the future. It's everyone's retirement will end up being digital. And the reason it will is because the US and every other country is like, man, we're all going down. We have to create our own cryptocurrency to then manhandle our people in our country and make them use ours so that they're forced to stay in our system. And so you're either going to be manhandled and continually be, shrunk and condensed with a country's, currency just put into a digital form in a wallet, or you can gain your sovereignty and gain your freedom and put your retirement outside of that system.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for those of you guys who are listening, one of my good buddies is big into cryptocurrency, and he gave me this book called The Bitcoin Standard that kind of illustrates the idea of what Blake's talking about, is the rapid adoption of as cryptocurrency as a form of payment is really a unique value proposition for those interested in investing in cryptocurrency. So it like you said, I think it is a growing trend, and I don't think, like you said, the Bitcoin or some of the major cryptocurrencies, I don't think that's going to stop the appreciation of that. And as more and more people get on the blockchain, and I think it's going to only bode well for the industry long term. So one thing I wanted to ask you was related to blockchain in particular. Unrelated, it can be related. It's related to cryptocurrency, but it's somewhat unrelated. And the reason I say it's unrelated is because I've talked to several real estate investors, title attorneys, et cetera, that have shown or have been interested in the implications of the blockchain when it comes to real estate investing. And I don't know if you have any opinions on that or anything related to maybe the next 5 to 10 years of how you see that evolving over time.
Yeah. So how kind of features of real estate get kind of integrated into the blockchain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Primarily related to that. So we offline, we were talking about tokenization. That's one thing that, is becoming very popular. Again, it's very cost prohibitive right now, but again, the value that people see, the ability to be able to tokenize properties and then distribute that on a secondary market to make real estate a lot more liquid. I think there's a lot of value there. So I don't know if you have any opinions. Yeah,
I'll kind of share like a 10,000 foot up highlight. And I think the big picture is for people to understand that it's moving so rapid that you can't play the game of like wait and see. You have to take ownership of being a part of the digital currency now. You have to actually invest now, because it's like 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 2 is 4, 4 + 4 is 8, 3 + 3 is 6. Okay, so that's all linear. But then when you get into 2 squared or multiplication, it's a different mental framework. It doesn't even function in the same part of your brain because you're counting beans and all of a sudden now multiplying beans. Well, that's kind of like internet 1.0, internet 2.0, internet 3.0, cryptocurrency 1.0, 2.0. When it as it's moving, the adoption is shifting. The more the adoption shifts, the more things open up, and it it creates a whole different world that you have to stay on. You have to be in it to appreciate how fast it's growing. So the big picture is on the blockchain. When I talk about the apps, first of all, we'll just go there. The things that can be done in the blockchain would be like in real estate, escrow will be held on the blockchain. So in a real estate transaction, so we'll talk about what you're talking about in a second, but escrow, so it won't go into the banks anymore. Like banks won't be holding the escrow anymore. Escrow will be held in the blockchain where you can see that the money's actually on there. Wages will, in smart contracts will be, earned in cryptocurrency. Digital rights, which is kind of where you're going, like your deed could be held in the blockchain. It wouldn't be like going to the courthouse and filing. I remember even like a decade ago, I remember like the library walls of the courthouse where like the file is like physically on, like being put in a wall of files. And obviously now it's digital into their computer, into their hard drive, and you can pull it up a digital file. But that's like, so if 1.0 is the library style, 2.0 is they're going to scan it into their hard
System.
drive, so it's pulled up. 3.0 is it's not there anymore. Your deed or the escrow is on the blockchain. So that then opens up a whole new world of how you could do an NFT, and an NFT was a digital value of the house, and you could sell, tons of different people into purchasing pieces of the house on the blockchain. Then it can go into a whole different world of record keeping. So like voting can be done on the blockchain, where you have to, one, be a human, you have to, two, have an identity that's in a electoral form in crypto, and then your name and everything will be on the vote, so they can see you're a real person voting. Like in the 21st century, how are we voting on paper with bubbles and stuff? So all these things with 1,000 other things, from crowdfunding and equities and global payments and student financial aid and healthcare and title records and ownership of things and higher education records. All this can be done in the blockchain with more accuracy, more efficiency, and it creates a better form of life for everyone.
For sure. No, of course. And you named a variety of different reasons why, being early in the adoption of this technology can be of benefit to you long term. So that's awesome, man. Really.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's an exciting time. It's a time when we're seeing people come who have, let's just say $1 million, in the stock market, and they've, spent their whole 40 years of working, and, they come up, that's what they had. That's their nest egg. And then we see them taking a 10% hit, when the market just has a bad season, and then they can't get that 10% back, because it's like, if you make 10% more, you're not back to even. You have to make more than 10% because you have a lower principal now. And so we're seeing people be able to take that $1 million, move that into a hedge fund like this, and then off of their earnings be able to replace their current income. Be able to replace their with the job that they thought they were never going to be able to get rid of. And so the amount of money that you can make if you just steward it wisely into, the certain niches of real estate or into cryptocurrency, the season is now. Obviously, we know where we are as a country, and if you're an entrepreneur and you're a business owner, or you're someone who's wanting to build wealth, like, you can't count on the US dollar anymore. You can't keep your money in US dollar. You literally have to move it off of that grid and into the digital form, into what we call storeholder wealth. So we have to change the mental frameworks that we used to live on, like we would on the stock market. Keep it in for the long haul. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, but those who take out are the ones who lose. if you keep it in for the long haul, you'll always win. Like that makes no sense anymore. The Bretton Woods Agreement back in the early 1900s, they shifted where the stock market, you don't even own a piece of stock anymore. You don't own a piece of the real company. You own a stock that's not even tied to the real company. It's a shell. So when someone buys a piece of Coca-Cola stock, you don't own a piece of Coca-Cola. Like the mystery of what you own is it's in a stock that doesn't even tie to the real asset. So when we transition to the digital world, you've got to own real, tangible, digital currency. And that's where it is right now. I mean, you have the ability, everyone has the ability to do that right now. And those who own cryptocurrency, that's where the largest wealth transfer in world history is happening right now.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it's impressive that you're saying that they're doing the 3-digit returns for, putting their money in the hedge fund and going through that. That's pretty impressive. So I kind of wanted to get in, how do you approach this on a personal level of your personal development? And then what are some of the things that you've done that's done the most impactful things for yourself and in your life? So
perfect. Which question first?
Okay, let's do the personal development.
Okay. So I would believe the mental framework that if I'm not growing, I'm dying, that my body's physically decaying. And so I would have to do things to be the salmon swimming upstream every day in every way to get stronger and stronger. So my morning routine is really, really important. And my evening routine is really, really important. My morning routine, starts with my evening routine. So I spend typically 10, 15, 20 minutes and I prepare my mind for bed, setting doing a visualization, expecting that tomorrow morning, like I'll have momentum working for me, that God will give me favor, that I literally have his hand and I have purpose for me. So it's like Christmas morning, like, you got gifts from, Santa Claus. And so it's like preparing the night before for the morning. Huge. It turns all the files off in your brain, and you literally are preparing for excitement when you wake up versus like my bones and my muscles hurt or whatever. My morning routine is really important. So a couple things that are a little extreme for some people, but is I do what I call empowering statements. So out loud with emotion, consistently with repetition, I'll say like identity statements. I'll say statements that are to take over my day. Statements that deal with like who I am and the power that I've been given for my purpose. I do what I call warring out loud. So instead of praying a beggarly prayer to God and as if God can't even hear me and if he's even real, I pray as if I'm like with him, like he's my daddy and I'm sitting in heaven and I'm praying boldly and declaring stuff boldly. Well, it changes the whole entire way you process and live. And then again, I'm always putting motivation stuff inside of me. So I'm always reading a book. I probably read a book a week, and I'm an audio guy. So it's an audio book, but I might still listen to that same audio book 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times, depending. And so it's always putting stuff in. And I guess the final thing I'd say is I don't process everything. Like I become what I take in. I'm filtering everything I take in. So I wear a filter at all times. And as I'm taking it in, I'm processing where does that anchor and where does that line up with my current beliefs and what current beliefs aren't good. And so they're only going to get morphed and changed if I say, yeah, that's a bad belief. It's not serving me anymore. But so as I'm taking new stuff in, I'm like eating the meat, spitting out the bones, and like looking for the nuggets that are going to take me to my purpose. And I think that's the biggest thing is that you always have to be growing and changing. Most people get soft. Most people actually fall asleep and become a machine. Michael Gerber from the E-Myth says that the natural condition of man is to fall asleep and become a machine. And like, so it's just that fight inside of me, that conviction, that resolve of like, oh, heck no. Like I will like rip my flesh off. I will like make myself, I'll always want to create a better me, knowing that if God's for me, who could be against me? Like he has greater things for me that haven't happened yet. So I want to run after those things with all my strength and sagacity, you know?
That's awesome, man. And like you said, I really like the idea of what you said pertaining to the speaking into existence what you believe to be true, because a lot of times I feel like we get caught up in our heads where we think of all these, and it's not only natural for people to have these negative thoughts in their heads about what they're falling short on or everything else. But that dynamic shift, when you actually call into existence who you are and what you want to become, is a complete mindset shift. And I think that, you know, similar to what you said, taking that approach when you do wake up in the morning and just fall into the person that you want to be is just very powerful. So I just kind of want to commend you on that statement for sure. Yeah,
I appreciate it. And it's something where like you can start. I mean, you can just start and you don't have to have it all right. You know, it's like 2 millimeters at a given time changes the course of the rudder of a boat. And so that's the beautiful thing is like, man, those who are listening, I just encourage you to believe in you more than the enemy believes against you. And if he has a fight against you, then you would have to have a fight against him. Most people lose the feeling of hatred because we're not supposed to hate things. Like you're supposed to hate the enemy. Like he wants to kill, steal, and destroy you. So you were to have an absolute boiling point of hatred against him. And that helps you like remember, well, that's the negative voice that's trying to get in my head is him. So that then allows us to take authority over that voice, because either you're going to define your life with God or he's going to the enemy is going to define your life for you. So that really helps me like change the perspective and realize that if I decide to be numb in the natural condition of man and fall asleep and become a machine, then the enemy will subdue me.
Oh, definitely, man. No, that's some powerful statements. And you touched on during that discussion, you talked about the impact that books have had on your life. And one of the things we like to ask near the end of our podcast interview is, what is the most impactful book that you've ever read? And if you've been reading a clip of book a week, I'm sure that you've had a big inventory of books that you can draw upon. But if you could maybe extract one or maybe 2 books that just kind of were that game changers for you, I think that'd be super helpful.
Sweet. One that I've read probably 3 times most recently is called Scale. So it's just the word scale by Jeff Hoffman. And I'm going to take one point out of it and just draw it out and tease it out. Why you have to go buy the book now? So we've all heard of the 80-20 rule. Yeah. And the 80-20 rule is, you know, obviously the idea that 80% of the productivity comes from 20% of your output. And so you could take that from 1,000 different directions, but this is where they go with it. He says, but what if there's an 80% of your 80% of your 80% of your 80%? So it brings it down. What if there's a 20% of your 20% of your 20% of your 20%? So he says that there's this 1%. So 20% of 20% of 20% of 20%. There's 1%. And that creates 64% of everything. Well, that's a game changer. So the mindset would be like you have A, B, C, and D time, and your 8% is at 1%. And so we typically, so if I apply it to business, I'd say your D time might be like putting paper in the fax machine or in the printer, and putting gas in your own vehicle and doing tasks that are just a monotonous task that someone else could do. But what if you could fill your time with more A time, which is that 1%? So he says that 1%, the A time, is 200 times more valuable than the D time. Well, like that's just epiphany, like crazy. So then it's just the basics of like, how do you get rid of D time? Some of the D time somebody else can do. Some of the D time you can just quit doing it. Some of the D time, you can shift, maybe turn it into a SOP or a standard operating procedure, and it's not nothing you have to process through anymore. So he shows you in the book how you can have 8 hours spending no more time a week. He helps you shift 8 hours of your time, your week, to A time, and it just blows up whatever you're trying to accomplish. So quite powerful principle.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
No, yeah, and you know, I've followed Tony Robbins as well, and they talk about the goal time at the top of the pyramid. But the shift of the 20%, the 20% of the 20%, that, you know, one or two things you can do amplify your results by the significance is super powerful. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Blake, I wanted to say personally, thank you for coming on. This is we're starting to round out the end of the show. And then at the end, we like to ask as well as we have a CRE treasure chest, which is a repository of things that other guests have given us so we can add value to all of our listeners. And what our ask is today is, what are you willing to contribute to that so we can further give out that value?
Awesome. Yeah, man, I'd love to. We do a master class on the secrets to getting started in cryptocurrency, and then how to build your all-weather portfolio and have massive success in cryptocurrency. So that'd be, man, I'd love to give that. So it's a free master class. It'll teach you everything you need to know if you want to run your own cryptocurrency, and how you can do it yourself, and even walk through a strategy similar to ours. Or if you want to actually have us do it for you, you'll see all the behind the scenes, all the details, all the secrets. Bottom line, you've got to be in cryptocurrency, and I'd love to give that masterclass out.
That's awesome, man. We greatly appreciate it. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I think this is the first we've had contributed to the commercial real estate treasure chest related to cryptocurrency. So I think there's gonna be a lot of people who are going to gain a lot of value from it. So, well,
yeah,
Blake, go ahead.
The easiest way to get that before I forget is if you'll text. So pull out your cell phone. So if you want that masterclass, pull out your cell phone. You're going to text the word invest to my personal number, 877-771-0615. You can't call the numbers. This is just a texting number, but this will send me a message directly. It'll send you directly to the information to get it. So 877-771-0615. You'll text the word invest, and then I'll put it in a PDF format for you guys, so you can put it in the in your vault as well.
I appreciate it. And not only that, but we'll include that number and that code in our description. So if you guys are watching this on a YouTube format or podcast format, that's going to be in the description below as well. Or you can access it via the PDF that Blake will be providing us. So we do appreciate that, Blake. So first off, we just greatly want to thank you for your time. If you want to learn more about you, get in contact, how would they do so?
Obviously, you can go to Boron Capital or boroncap.com, but I would strongly suggest just send that text, because if you have anything you want to know more about, whether it's self-storage, mobile home park, communities, or crypto, I want to get you plugged into education. That's the best way that you can learn, is education. So again, the masterclass, we've got other things like that. That'd be the best place. So again, texting the word invest to 877-771-0615.
Awesome, man. Well, again, Blake, we greatly appreciate your time. You're doing some awesome things, and we're excited to see your progress over the next several years. If you guys are watching this in a YouTube format, we would greatly appreciate if you can like and subscribe. We've seen a significant uptick in our engagement as a result. We've also would like you, if you guys are watching this on a Spotify or Apple Podcast or any other type of medium where you're listening to this in an audio format, we would greatly appreciate a 5-star review. We've seen a significant uptick in our downloads as a result of you guys engaging with the podcast. So again, we greatly appreciate y'all's time, and we'll see y'all next time.